Lots of time for questions. Let's start in the right with Rafael. Yeah. In my right.
Hey, Larry, thank you. You make a very good positioning for my talk, so thank you for that. Quick question. You mentioned about scheduling, at different levels of resources. So today, of course, most of the places are using Slurm, Kaplan is in Flux, and Flux is doing already a little bit of the workflow partitioning on the user level or in the entire system level. But as we see, the next generation of machines, that you talk as this complex ecosystem. So are you guys also looking into creating these different fine-grained resource management within the resource that might have AI accelerators or quantum systems connected to it?
Right. So we have not looked strongly at the more esoteric hardware yet and how we might fold that in from a scheduling standpoint. I do agree, though, that it's something we want to be looking at from a scheduling point of view. But I'm really nervous about doing that without looking at some of those other quality of service components. Because if I can't get to it reliably with some kind of guaranteed service, I think one of the things that was talked about that this is a big issue in Edge is can you get access to the central database in order to be dumping your data? I think it's a similar issue even inside a system, and we need to make sure that however we integrate these things from a scheduling standpoint, we make sure we can provide some guarantees, some SLAs into how the data will flow. So I think it's a good question, and it's something we need to think about some more as we start integrating these components. We haven't started that yet, but I would agree it's in the near future.
Next question before I start to ask questions. So, yes, Jess.
Thanks, Larry. I'm just interested in the very much interested in the TCO optimization there at the end as someone that's responsible for that. Tell me, is there what sort of instrumentation you have to put on these machines to kind of enable this sort of analysis? Just talk us through a wee bit more detail of that.
Sure. So today, on the systems we ship today, we provide telemetry basically directly off the voltage regulators on the blades and some of the higher level voltage regulators. So we get real time. Generally, it's 1 hertz, some of it's 10 hertz. Some of it's 0.1 hertz collected data on voltage, but more importantly, energy or amperage measures. And we can aggregate that in 2 ways. And this is, I think, one of the nice things that we've been able to do. Obviously, the system management, the system administrator can get that information out of band. And again, this is mostly on the high-end systems. We don't do this on this is in EX today. We actually have this in XC as well, to a large degree, where all of this data is going, and today it's thrown onto a Kafka bus actually, and then can be dumped into Victoria metrics and then picked up and analyzed in any way you want. The other thing that we provide that's going to help some of these more autonomous power management cases is we actually did an integration between the BMC and Linux so that all of those sensors that are available on the blade are available in sysfs. So you can, and it's got generation counters and a bunch. So if you look up PM counters, if you go to support.hpe.com and look up PM_counters, you'll see the documentation for what that can provide. And it will do it, essentially we do per processor. And the challenge is not all the memories are broken out. If you're working with HBM, it's not broken out. And so we don't have quite the granularity we would like. And that's something we're working on with the vendors. Is that answering the question? Okay, great. Thank you.
Balas, it's coming on the way.
So you mentioned that you are thinking about supporting serverless or function as a service.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interest of that in the research community, of course, but I'm wondering do you actually see any real user interest for this?
We do. I was actually very surprised that some of the weather folks have told me that they believe that their applications can be decomposed into function as a service. Because, when you think about the weather codes, and which is essentially a form of multi-physics codes, I would have thought the coupling was too tight to be able to do something like that. But I've seen some people talking about that possibility even for, I think, Cosmo It was talked about for and a few others. I see Dan nodding. Thank you. Yeah, it seems a little far-fetched, but in the HPC space, but I think in the AI space, it's considered much more common. So we're not there yet. I think we've looked at Knative as currently one of the better solutions, but I think there's a lot more research to do in this area, and we have to decide how far we want to go.
Perhaps a broader question, just total personal interest. Where is HPE business going? In terms that, AI hyperscalers de facto dominant in the HPC market, but where is the profitable business of HPE going?
Right. So this is, as you might imagine, is a big internal debate as to where we put our efforts. And the AI slice of the pie.
Say that I'm asking the engineer.
Right. The AI pie is huge. But given our HPC expertise, we believe there are things we can do where we have expertise to bring to bear to the AI market. So clearly, we're going to do the platforms that AI folks want. We want to be part of that business. That doesn't necessarily mean the software, which is, of course, where I am, right? If you buy an NVIDIA system, you're probably going to be using a lot of NVIDIA software to do your AI. Can we help? Yes, I think there are places we can help when you're looking at issues of scalability and reliability, because, NVIDIA's got a lot of great stuff, but they don't necessarily focus on all of those aspects. So as an engineer, it's really the idea of looking at the infrastructure required. Where can we apply the knowledge we have from HPC to AI? And then what more do we need to learn how to do?
And would be what Simon mentioned about do not discard the CPU these days a path to follow?
Well, yeah. So I'm a little bit of a CPU bigot myself. And that's my comment before about the ARM. I think I can freely say this, that as part of the DOE Star Forward program, Cray, because of its long history in vector processors, actually helped with the design of SVEV2 and some of the predication work that was done in the architecture. The problem is, as I mentioned, no one's implemented it.
Yeah.
So the question is, can we as a community, for whatever reason, whether it's for HPC codes or for AI codes, and I know less about the applicability of the AI codes, but I know some HPC codes that would love it, that can't even use GPUs. Can we get the vendors to pay enough attention to that stuff?
Because more from a manager hat perspective, maybe asking the engineer or the leader at certain management position, I sit on top of an organization, HPE, which has a monumental investment. Let's call it not necessarily legacy, because that sounds old, but a lot of stuff which is still operational in a big amount of the world. Versus take a decision, okay, should I invest billions or more in something new? I need to take a decision which is not necessarily on the high-tech side of things. Which would you recommend me?
You're going to get me into trouble. All right. So look,
I'd say that I have been your customer for the past 20 years and you serve me well. But suddenly I have all these wonderful things coming which are promising me the future or even the present. I'm still loyal to you, but for how long?
Well, but I will say that, whatever you want, regardless of who's the component vendor, we can provide it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so like one of the questions one might ask is, well, okay, so we have our own network. It's not InfiniBand. So, is that appropriate? Well, if you're doing HPC, we clearly think it is, but we think with a little more work, it will also be completely appropriate for AI. But then there's the software issue that if you look at some vendors, they have their own software stacks. Other vendors don't, right? So, but still want to get in the AI space. Well, there's their play there. So I would say that we're still the right people to talk to in terms of system delivery, because we provide these fully integrated systems. We provide a really solid service organization. So you're going to get all those benefits while still being able to leverage the benefits of the component vendors. You get the best of both worlds.
Please join me saying thank you to the master salesperson of HP. Hakim Toski.